Hi, I'm Eileen Roach from Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'm excited to ring in the new year with you. So happy New Year. Can you believe 2020? I find that to be pretty amazing. This year, we're kicking it off with a sew-along, which we're going to have all year long. And at the beginning of every month, normally it will be at the last week of the month, and you're going to get a new embroidery design that is part of our door series. And maybe you're wondering why the door. Hello, Judy Warren. Aloha from Hawaii. Hope you had a good New Year. Thanks for joining us today. It's can you imagine ringing in the New Year in Hawaii? Wouldn't that be fun, right? So getting back to why doors, it's funny, right? Our first visitor is from Hawaii. Well, when I travel, I often find myself taking photographs of doors. When I was in Italy, they have some wonderful old architecture there. Of course they do. And some of the doors are just mesmerizing. So I have taken photographs of doors in Europe and all over the country, like in Carmel, California specifically. I can remember a beautiful trip there that the doors there seem to have a lot of charm. They have a lot of arched doors. They have doors with beautiful foliage, growing over them. So it's a really fun thing that I have kind of been drawn to my whole life. And so that was how I came up with this idea. I digitized these designs myself, and as we get down the road, maybe we'll be sharing some digitizing lessons with you on how to do that. And hi, Jojo, you're up in Minnesota. Oh boy, I know it's really cold up there. I have family up there, and we often, text back and forth, what's the temp? And it's usually a negative in front of their number. So I'm definitely not jealous about that. But I admire all you folks who live up there in that cold weather. Hi, Aine. Thanks for joining us. Aine McCarthy is one of our educators here at Dime, and she is heading to Louisiana next week, I know, to teach in the Shreveport area. So you'll have to check out our schedule for that on Inspired by Dime. So what are you going to get? Well, you're going to get the whole embroidery design. And I think if we go and we switch over to a tighter camera, we'll get a closer look at it. And hi, Phil, you're in Florida. Oh boy, that's fun. I'm actually heading down there myself pretty soon. Okay, so let's go over and take a closer look, right? And as you can see, I was inspired by a home in Boston, Massachusetts, where they have kind of those tall, kind of, New England colors for sure, and always snow in the ground in January there. So we start with house fabric, and that's all texturized with quilting. And then we add our door, our walkway, our frame, some of the decorative details. We add a tree and some skis. But of course, this is going to hang, right? It has two little hanging sleeves. And you might be wondering, why two hanging sleeves? Well, we have a wire frame that is kind of a unique setup, that it has these decorative scroll feet. And then it also has a wire frame at the top so that you can hang your door quilt block right on it. So here, let's go back over to the other camera, and I'm going to share with you the step-by-step instructions so you can get a close look at that. You'll also notice later today, in about an hour or so, we're going to have the embroidery design and the instructions on how to do this. So you'll get all of these different, all the steps, step-by-step, the materials list, and so forth. So let's switch over to the PowerPoint so you can get a really close look at each of the steps. And I know you can handle this because it's easy. And even if you're a beginner, you can definitely handle this. It's going to fit in a 6 by 10 inch hoop. You can use a standard embroidery hoop, or you can use one of our magnetic hoops. Of course, that's what I chose. And it's a minimal amount of fabric. You're just going to need a fat quarter for the back of the block, the house itself, and the hanging sleeve. And then from there, you'll need a door, you'll need a frame, snow, and walkway. And they're really the only fabrics. You could just use scraps. I'm sure you have something in your sewing room that you could use. Now, batting, I would suggest a low loft bat, probably a cotton or a cotton poly blend. Use some fusible web. I always have that on hand, and I like to apply it to my applique fabrics. And you're also going to apply it to part of those hanging sleeves. I'll show you that in a minute. First, I hoop piece and stitch tearaway wash away stabilizer. That's what I love to use when I am quilting in the hoop, because it's just really delicate. So the first thing you're going to do is prepare those tabs, and they're super easy. So to prepare them, you start with 2 3¼ inch squares, and then add 2 skinny strips of fusible web on 2 opposing sides of each block. And then remove that protective paper and fold over, just creating a hem basically on the sides, and press that to secure. And then you fold each of those in half, wrong sides together, and that becomes your hanging sleeve. Set them aside, and then go ahead and hoop your piece and stitch tearaway wash away stabilizer. Place the batting in the hoop. I just lay it right on top and stitch color 1, which is going to be the tack down of the batting. Now you can trim the batting at this point, or you can opt to trim later, and I'll show you a tip on how to do that. But if you like to trim now, you most certainly can. And then lay your house fabric over the batting and stitch the next color, which is all the texturized kind of stonework on the house. And then you'll notice it's leaving that opening, right, for the frame and the door, so that's good. And you don't have to do any trimming at this point. In fact, you want to have excess fabric outside of the house, because that becomes your seam allowance, so don't trim that away. Add your walkway fabric at the bottom, and you'll want to extend some of that, raw edge of the applique over that bottom line, and stitch next color, which is a tack down, and then trim it close to the tack down line. Now, there's no satin edge on this segment because it will be layered with the door frame and snow later on, so that's why that's omitted. And then you'll stitch the next color, which is the placement guide for the door. And I did it in red so that you could see it here clearly. And then I'm just going to lay my door fabric over top that outline and trim all the way around, make it a nice clean edge. And once that's trimmed, the next thing I do is the details on the door. And I love everybody to know how much I stitch. So I always stitch my details in a contrasting color. Angela, I'm glad you think it's super cute. Oh, and I do too. I've really had a lot of fun with it. And then the ones coming up are even, more fun. And everyone is going to reflect the season, so that'll be quite fun. And Judy, you have a cousin in Boston. I have a sister in Boston, in a beautiful area of Boston. So I have spent some time there. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, so back to our panel. Once we've stitched that detail, it's time to place the frame over that outline. Now, this is going to be the door frame and the roof gable. So, this is really kind of the main fabric of the whole quilt block. Now, you'll stitch the tack down and then carefully trim close to those outline stitches so that you get, that you trim all that excess fabric, because you don't want that peeking through your pretty satin stitches once they're applied. And once they are applied, you'll notice at the top, it looks a little weird at the top, but don't worry about that, because that's where the snow is going to be added, on top of that roof. The next color is the details in the gable itself, and that just adds some definition to the doorway. Speaking of definition, what's a door without the detail of a lock and a doorknob and the lantern? So stitch all them. I used our Kingstar gold metallic thread and didn't have any problem with that beautiful metallic thread, and it really does glisten. So I love that for sure. And then it's time to add the applique snow on top. Now, I haven't given you every image of all these different steps, but of course there's a placement guide, and then you'll cover that with the white fabric. The next color will be the tack down. You'll be careful to trim all the way around close to that tack down, and then a final satin stitch all the way around to finish that off. And I think that's really one of my favorite features. I love how it kind of is curvy on the top, natural, just like it would be in Massachusetts. Now, what home doesn't look beautiful with some kind of foliage in the front? So a tree is added next. And now when you select your thread color here, make sure it's, contrasting. You really want it to pop off that stone face of the house. So select a thread that's going to give you that effect. And if there's snow on the roof, there has to be snow in the tree, right? So your next color is going to be the little snowdrifts, the tiny little snowdrifts that are in the fork of each branch. And you'll stitch them in a nice white thread. And since the white thread is still in the needle, our next part of the design is the snowdrift on the right side of the doorway. And color 1 is a placement guide, of course, and you'll stitch that, and then you'll cover it with the prepared white fabric, and then you'll trim it away after the tack down, and then the satin stitch. Right after the satin stitches, and in the same color segment, the needle will move over to the left snowdrift and stitch that outline. And the reason why I did this in 2 segments, one is to conserve fabric, and then the other is the first time in one of my tests, my foot got caught on the 2 different pieces of fabric, and goodness, that's a nightmare, right? So I figured, well, I'll just digitize it separately. Yes, it's another color stop, but it doesn't mean you have to change the thread. You're still in white thread, but it just sets you up for success. And so let's see, Retha. Oh, you love having the detailed instructions. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's hard to figure these things out. And when you download a design, often the colors of the designs don't make a lot of sense. And that's because colored, some machines won't stop if you have white, 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 all as different color segments, but the machine reads it as one color. So we've eliminated that problem and named the color of the thread colors in the actual design in kind of, in colors that don't really make a lot of sense. But because you have the full instructions with photographs telling you exactly what's going to stitch next, you'll know what thread that you should be using. Now, you have to remember that no matter what color I tell you to use, you're going to pick your own fabric. So it's all about the fabric. Sometimes you want to match the fabric and sometimes you want contrast. So that's really what tells you what thread to pick. So I'm glad that you like these instructions, and I can't wait to see how you will all do that. Now, Lynn, you want to know how you'll get the designs. Well, later this afternoon, they're going to be posted on my blog. Actually, when we post the rebroadcast of this live video segment, then you will also find a link there on how to download all of those. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. So we were just going to finish up that left snowdrift on the side, right? So now that that's complete, we're almost done, but now it's time to add the skis. That's what I opted to add into this embroidery design for January, because I would definitely like to get on the ski slopes in January. That's one of my favorite things to do, and we sure can't do that here in Texas, but anyway, super fun and most certainly signifies winter. So you'll stitch them, and again, use your contrasting thread so you get a really nice color pop there on the right side. Now it's time to add those sleeves, the 2 hanging sleeves at the top. So to do that, I used a centering ruler to find the center of the block. And that's what you see, that vertical line is positioned in the center of the block. And then I will take my folded sleeves that I prepared earlier and place each sleeve in the center of each half of the block, because I need a little space in the middle of the block so that I can thread the quilt block on this hanger. That's what's important, to be able to feed the quilt block onto that wire frame hanger. And that opening is in the center. You want to make sure that you extend the raw edge of those tabs beyond the block, above the edge of the design at the top of the hoop, because that becomes the seam allowance. Use some tape to make sure that it's nice and secure, and then remove that ruler. Don't stitch with the ruler in the hoop. Ask me how I know. Anyway, don't ask me how I know. Let's see. And hi, Joanne Banco. Thanks for joining us. It's so nice to see you. And she likes those skis at the door too. I know. Yeah, me too. Okay, so remove that ruler. And now the digitizing is such that it's going to start in the left corner and travel all the way across. So you can see that once it's finished, it goes, from left to right. Stay with the machine at that segment because, you don't want the foot to get caught on the second sleeve or something like that. Once that's complete, we're almost done. I mean, you really are almost done. These fun in the hoop projects, they take a little bit of time, but wow, they are super fun. So let's see. The next thing we're going to do is add that quilt block back. So our backing fabric, this is really important. Now you need to fill that whole hoop with that backing fabric. Don't be afraid that it's too large. You almost can't have it too large. What you don't want to do is have it too small or as small that your seam allowances are super narrow, because sometimes when you turn an in the hoop project, you get a blowout seam, right? Sometimes those stitches will separate and then it'll fall apart. So err on the side of caution and make sure you use a large piece of fabric that fills the hoop. And our last color is that tacked, it's really the seaming, and it's a 2-ply stitch, so it's going to go all the way around once and then come back and go all the way around again. It's a short stitch, so it's nice and secure. So yeah, I like that. And you'll notice that opening is in the center on the right hand side, which kind of makes it inconspicuous, hopefully. Okay, so now time to take it out of the hoop. This is where the fun begins. Now, if you haven't removed your batting like we did possibly in color number 1, we talked about that, and I said if you don't want to, no problem. So at this point you would use a quilter's ruler and peel back, fold back the top fabric and the bottom fabric, the back of the quilt block, so that you would just have that batting exposed. Use the edge of that ruler and trim off that excess batting. It really does make a difference removing that excess batting, because you'll get a smoother finish after you turn the project. Okay, and now it is time to clip those corners. Get as close as you can. I actually probably got a bit closer than the image that you're seeing here. I often do trim what I think is close, then I turn the whole project, and then I find that I probably didn't get close enough, and then I'll turn it again and trim and then repeat that process. And that doesn't bother me. I'd rather err on that side. If I trim too close the first time and get a blowout on a corner, boy, that's a nightmare, right? So there's the inside. Ugh, it's not very attractive. I just leave that piece and stitch tearaway, wash away stabilizer in place. It gets very soft, and it's not too papery, so that's fine. I keep it in place. And welcome to Karina from Norway. Love having you here. Thank you for joining us. I'll bet she's got skis on her front porch, right? Okay, so now it's time to personalize it. Now, this is something that you can do to mimic the home that you are trying to commemorate, in this quilt block, like with your own address. Like here we have 2110 that I used Perfect Embroidery Pro software, and because we have micro lettering in there, so I used those small letters to make that address kind of a plate on the bottom of the door. And then I stitched a wreath from my lace charm collection, so that on water soluble stabilizer, and rinsed it away, and also dried it, and then I just hand tacked it to the top of the door. Isn't that, so that's a great way to accent it. A monogram, lots of monogram wreaths are popular. I know down south we see a lot of them. So we'll do some of that as the year goes on for sure. And Dory, you're hi from Naples. Hi, Dory. Nice to have you here. Oh, I love it down there. And I really appreciate you visiting here with us today, Dory. I know that you've been cruising with the Stitchin' Sisters before. We've had a lot of fun, so it's nice to see you here. And let me see, Joanne, a little piece of soft fusible interfacing will help reinforce the corners. Oh, that's a great tip. I like that. So soft fusible interfacing right at the corners, that's really a very good tip. Thanks for sharing that. You know, Joanne Banco is a wizard, a sewing wizard. My goodness, some of the beautiful projects she has sent Dime over the years are quite memorable. And if you get a tip from Joanne, pay attention because she knows what she's talking about for sure. Okay, so later today, you're going to be able to download this design over at my blog, which is dzgns/blog. And it'll be up there for the whole month. And then in February, well, the last Thursday of January is when we will host the February door. And I have it done, but they told me I can't show you, but okay. It does involve a snowman, so that's kind of fun. But and then we've already got March in the hopper, as we like to say here. But it's been a lot of fun working on these. And oh, Dory, you're leaving Saturday with Missy. You're going cruising again. Well, I'm jealous. You know, Missy called me and ordered thread from my company and said, you know, I need it delivered, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of offered to hand deliver it to the dock, but she didn't take me up on it. But anyway, I'm jealous. I hope you have a really good time down there, Dory. And smooth sailing, smooth sailing. So let's see, this is going to be fun. Retha, yeah, and now when you make your blog, I want you to share it with us. So we're going to have a hashtag. And what's our hashtag? It's going to be hashtag Dime Door, I think, right? Going to keep it simple so we can all remember. And I just can't wait to see all the variations because I know some of you aren't going to use a red frame or a brown door. You're going to do all kinds of other interesting things. And throughout the year, you know, it's going to reflect the seasons. It'll reflect different parts of the country. And I'm really excited about it. And it's made me, you know, a better digitizer for sure. I love working on projects like that. If I have a task, assigned task, then I really am able to kind of dig in and learn my software, use it more. So I love that. I mean, you know, I use my machines all the time for sure, but it's the software. So give me a thumbs up if you like this because I want to make sure that our team here knows that you are really enjoying this. And Deborah, you're welcome for sharing I'm glad to share this design. You know, I like to encourage everybody to really use their machine, get the most out of their machine, and continue to sew. So we don't always give away a ton of stuff, but this year we decided once a month we're going to do this whole series and see where it goes because it's exciting to you know, communicate with everybody here on Facebook Live. And what I love about it is you could start sharing images and we can get more interaction with this. So let's see. Nothing to do. Remember several years ago when you placed 4 napkins and you did a corner, and then I don't know, was you were, oh yeah, Marion Phillips, you were talking about my speed stitching for how to do a whole set of napkins in one hoop. Yeah, I did do that, and I did it on in my blog, and I've also done it, I think, on It's So Easy. So, but you can find that information on my blog. That's still up there. This week, speaking of tips on embroidery, we have a special on my book, 6 Easy Steps for Embroidery. So if you know someone who is kind of beginning sewing or you yourself, you want a good refresher on some basics, it's a great book for people who just want to kind of tone up their skills in machine embroidery. And that special will be starting tomorrow. So that's always lots of fun to participate in that. So, oh, hi, Ashley. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, well, I'm glad that you're here. Ashley is also one of our educators in Dime, and boy, she travels the country all the way from Puerto Rico, sharing her passion and her knowledge with embroiderers in retail locations all around the country. And boy, if you get to go to one, if you have a Dime event happening near you, you should attend because there are so many tips that they share, not only on our product, but every time I go to an event and watch one of our educators, I learn from them. Like last time I went and saw Ashley, she shared a great tip on how to keep stabilizer in a hoop when doing a lace, you know, and I can't tell you because it's her tip and she taught it at her class. So you have to go to a lace and camo event and learn it yourself. But she's great. And Joanne, oh, thanks for mentioning that our back issues for the magazine are on sale too, and to grab them while you can. And, you know, look for Joanne's projects. Wow, she has a ton. She has a ton. Okay, and Deborah, you're asking for a new monster hoop for the new large Janome 550 hoop. Well, currently we make a 5x7 and a 200x200, and I think a 7x12 or an 8x12. We don't have plans for a larger hoop at this time. But Deborah, what size are you looking for? Is it a size other than the 8x12? If you could leave us a comment about that, we'll see what we can go do. Oh, Cheryl, you're a beginner. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, definitely. This is the right place for you to come because we're all about embroidery and it's all we do all the time. So we're happy to share. And we're always happy to share our knowledge because without that, what good does it do, right? We need everybody to sew. We need to keep these dealers in business. We need to keep these design companies in business because that's what makes it so much fun is having all these products and tools available for us. So let's see, Sue Brown, there will be tons of people stitching this. I hope so. Oh, and Sue, I hope you'll join. Are you in Canada right now? Join. Sue, are you up in Canada right now? Oh, mahalo to you too, Judy Warren. Thank you. Okay, so it's kind of, I'm just reading the comments. I just want to make sure that I haven't missed any important points, but yeah. Oh, and Janet, you're at work today, taking a break, but you're going to work on it this weekend. That's what I do on the weekends. I work here at Dime 5 days a week, pretty long days. Come Saturday, I'm probably back at my machine in my own sewing room. And but that's okay, right? That's what we like to do. So we'll be here next week on Thursday at 1 o'clock Central Time, and we're super excited to share our next project. And I hope by then we see some photos of your door because I'm excited to see what you come up with. And until then, I hope you have a great week. Stay warm, be safe, and happy stitching. Thank you for joining me. Oh, well, I got one more question. Liz wants to know, is the wreath all embroidery? Yes, it is. It is from my lace charm collection, and that is a separate purchased item. So it's not part of the door itself, but you can add whatever kind of charm that you would like to know. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week, Thursday at 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining me.